The features of ecstatic love for Krishna, so there's obviously a lot of ecstatic love for Krishna around. Once Lord Baladev began to talk in his sleep as follows. O Lotuside Krishna, your childhood adventures are manifest simply according to your own will. Therefore, please immediately dispose of the stubborn pride of this clear serpent. By saying this, Lord Baladev astonished the assembly of the Yadus and made them laugh for some time. Then, yawning so hard as to make ripples on his abdomen, Lord Baladev, the bearer of the plough, returned to his deep sleep. This is an instance of sleepiness in ecstatic love. So he must have been asleep in the public assembly because the Yadus were laughing in the assembly of Yadus. And then we've got alertness. A devotee once stated, I've already conquered the mode of ignorance and I'm now on the platform of transcendental knowledge. Therefore, I shall be engaged only in searching after the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is an instance of alertness in ecstatic love. Transcendental alertness is possible when the illusory condition is completely overcome. At that stage, when in contact with any reaction of material elements such as sound, smell, touch, or taste, the devotee realizes the transcendental presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this condition, the ecstatic symptoms, for example, standing of the hair on the body, rolling of the eyeballs, and getting up from sleep, are persistently visible. When Srimati Radharani first saw Krishna, she suddenly became conscious of all transcendental happiness, and the functions of her different limbs were stunned. When Alita, her constant companion, whispered into her ear the holy name of Krishna, Radharani immediately opened her eyes wide. This is an instance of alertness caused by hearing the sound of Krishna's name. One day, in a joking mood, Krishna informed Radharani, My dear Radharani, I'm going to give up your company. Upon saying this, she immediately disappeared, and because of this, Radharani became so afflicted that the hue of her body changed, and she immediately fell down upon the ground of Vrindavan. She had practically stopped breathing, but when she smelled the flavor of the flowers on the ground, she awoke in ecstasy and got up. This is an instance of transcendental alertness caused by smelling. Srila Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavtam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from the 8th canto, chapter 7, entitled Lord Shiva Saves the Universe. Text 20. Tvam ekasava jagatam Ishvaro bandhamakshayo Tam tvam archanti kushala Prapanati haram gurum Tvam ekasava jagata Ishvaro bandhamakshayo Tam tvam archanti kushala Prapanati haram gurum Tvameka savajagata Ishvaro bandhamokshayo Tam tvam archanti kushala Prapanati haram gurum. Ishvaro bandhamokshayo Tam tvam archanti kushala Ishvaro bandhamokshayo Dasa Ishvaro Bhagatmayo Tam Trama Chanti Kushala Prapanati Haram Gurun Tamika Savajagata Ishvaro Bandamakshayo Tam Trama Chanti Kushala Prapanati Haram Gurun Twameka is indeed Savajagata of the three worlds, Ishvara, the controller, Bandhamokshayo, of both bondage and liberation, Tam, that controller, Tramachanti, worship you, Kushala, persons who want good fortune, Prapana Arti Haram, who can mitigate all the distresses of a sheltered devotee. Gurum, you who act as a good advisor to all fallen souls. Translation, O Lord, you are the cause of bondage and liberation of the entire universe, because you are its ruler. Those who are advanced in spiritual consciousness surrender unto you, and therefore you are the cause of mitigating their distresses, and you are also the cause of their liberation. We therefore worship your Lordship. Responsibly, please. O Lord, you are the cause of bondage and liberation of the entire universe, because you are its ruler. Those who are advanced in spiritual consciousness surrender unto you, and therefore you are the cause of mitigating their distresses, and you are also the cause of their liberation. We therefore worship your Lordship. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Actually, Lord Vishnu maintains and accomplishes all good fortune. If one has to take shelter of Lord Vishnu, why should the demigod take shelter of Lord Shiva? The demigods. They did so because Lord Vishnu acts through Lord Shiva in the creation of the material world. Lord Shiva acts on behalf of Lord Vishnu. When the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 14.4 that he is the father of all living entities, Aham Bija Prada Pita, this refers to his actions performed by Lord Vishnu through Lord Shiva. Lord Vishnu is always unattached to material activities, and when material activities are to be performed, Lord Vishnu performs them through Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is therefore worshipped on the level of Lord Vishnu. When Lord Vishnu is untouched by the external energy, he is Lord Vishnu. But when he is in touch with the external energy, he appears in his feature as Lord Shiva. Om Jnana Timirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vansha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha Paditanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So, interesting, Srila Prabhupada immediately, actually Lord Vishnu. Actually, it's Lord Vishnu. And then at the end, he says that Lord Shiva, then he is, if he's untouched by the external energy, he is Lord Vishnu. But when he's in touch with the external energy, he appears in his future as Lord Shiva. Because it refers here to Lord Shiva giving liberation, the cause of liberation. So that's Vishnu Tattva, gives liberation from samsara. So when Lord Shiva is not in touch with the external energy, then he can give liberation to Vaikuntha. So if you're still in the material world, then you can't be liberated.
I was listening to one class with my Guru Maharaj about Advaita Acharya, and he was saying that Sadashiva, the energy of Sadashiva is spiritual. It's like there's a planet in the spiritual world of Sadashiva, and then Lord Shiva is like the material version.
Wow, that's amazing.
Interesting, because there was Advaita Acharya Sadashiva, right?
So when it's referring to Kailash, that's the expansion of Lord Shiva in the material world, in touch with the external energy. But then that's not a place that you can be liberated, because it's still within the material world. Yeah. Interesting. Also, Shiva Ramash just gave a class, and he was talking about cosmology in Soho Street. And he said, of course, it's a very incomprehensible phenomenon, but we should, to some degree, understand it so that we can convince other people who are reasonable. He says if they're reasonable, then with reasonable argument, we can convince them. He said that's why we're all here, because we read Srila Prabhupada's books, we considered the arguments were reasonable, and we decided to become devotees. So there may not be that many reasonable people, that's the only problem. So if you're on Sankirtan and you're trying to be economical with your time, then one thing you can do is very quickly try and work out, is this person reasonable? Because if he's not, then you're wasting your time and you're wasting his time. And then you're not engaging other people who are walking past at the same time while you're wasting time on somebody that's going to be unreasonable. And an unreasonable person means a person who's not sincere, really. So if a person's not sincere, that's not really our problem. That's their problem. We're just trying to connect. Dadati Pataginati Guyamakti Prichiti, which we're trying to have loving exchanges with devotees, and we're just trying to find the devotees. So when we're on book distribution, we're approaching people, and then we're reading them to one degree or another. As we become Majjhima Adhikari, then we can read the people that are walking down the street and see which ones are devotees, which are non-devotees, which are innocent, which are envious, and also we can see how the Supreme Personality of Godhead is interacting with everything that's going on around us. So that's when Sankirtan becomes interesting, when you're Majjhima Adhikari. When you're Kanishta Adhikari, then the people look like a herd of elephants running past, trying to get their buns in their trunks. And so then it can be a little bit off-putting, because you're thinking who to approach, who's reasonable, who's not reasonable. But we can develop our ability to determine that. Every day we go out on Sankirtan and do book distribution, we become a little bit more practiced, a little bit more accomplished, a little bit more able to ascertain. And in a nice way, we realize, like Shiva Ramanuj was saying, I mean, how can we even understand that the universe is resting on 4 elephants? I mean, what do they do all day? What if one of them needs to go and answer the call of nature? Or they want to have something to eat, or chill out, have a game of football or something, you know? How can we understand it? We can accept it. Like this man in Aberdeen once, he was saying, you know, I mean, he used to give a good donation, and he would just do this to poke fun. And the devotee that used to go around to see him before that, he always used to be able to annoy this devotee. So he used to enjoy annoying him, you know. So he's saying to me, how can you really believe this, you know? Krishna, Balu Krishna, and demigods and all this. And I said, well, that's nothing. The universe is standing on 4 elephants. And he's going, no, you've completely blown it now. So I was joking with him also. But obviously, people aren't going to really be able to get a grip of that. So you'd have to deal within the realms of what is reasonable to understand. And that's what the TVOP is all about. We can show you to reasonable people that this model of the universe synchronizes with what we say, the movement of the planets. And this model of the universe has the Earth at the center, not the Sun. The Sun is going around Mandara Mountain. And I remember when I first heard that the Earth was the center of the universe, I was thinking, well, that's typical of the medieval, that everything revolves around me. Everybody must be thinking the same thing on every other planet, But the fact is that the sun is revolving around us. So Lord Shiva acts through, Lord Vishnu acts through Shiva in the creation of the material world. Anyone know what that's referring to? As far as I know, Shiva destroys. I didn't know he created. I mean, Durga is the material energy. Makdyakshena prakriti suiti sacharam. So, and Durga is like the Shakti consort of Lord Shiva. So she creates, or she provides anyway, the materials for the material energy. It's interesting, the interplay of being a controller and at the same time being aware that you're being used as a tool, Like Krishna shows Arjuna, I've actually killed them already. But to Arjuna, it seemed like if he didn't fire the arrow in the right way, it would go over the person's shoulder and he would miss him. So it would seem like he was killing them, If he aimed correctly, took the person's head off, then he killed them, So to all intents and purposes, it seemed like him. And at the end of the battle, they were arguing who was actually the man of the battle, who was the real hero. Was it Bhima? Was it Arjuna? And Babarak's head was on top of a tree. He'd been given the benediction that he could watch the whole battle. And he said it was Krishna who killed. He's the hero. Every time the arrow went to someone to kill them, the Shuddashan killed them first. So everybody in Kurukshetra was liberated. So how to be able to see that when you approach somebody and you say the right thing and they take books and you engage them nicely, that actually that was Krishna and it wasn't you that did it. And even though Lord Shiva is such a great personality, when he's in contact with the external energy, then he appears as Lord Shiva. So how do we remain immune to the contact with the external energy when even great devotees like Lord Shiva are affected? So it's quite a phenomenal. What we're trying to do, to become pure devotees and develop Krishna prema is a phenomenal. Even the demigods, that's why they're queuing up to take birth, because liberation is relatively easy, but to achieve Krishna prema, and in such a simple way, our lifespan, from the perspective of a demigod, is like a little ant running around for a few days, and then he goes back to Goloka. So the demigods are queuing up to take birth, to take advantage of that opportunity. So, of course, the demigods are queuing up. If you were a demigod and you were queuing up, and you were looking down, you'd be waiting for a few bigger temples, right? A few more people, a few better cooks for the Sunday feast. And then after a few hundred years, okay, I'm going to head down now. It looks pretty well established, We're like really in the pioneering stages right now. But then we get more benefit because it's more of a struggle to do it. And nobody's forgotten anyone that engages in the Sankirtan movement, then that's to his eternal credit. As long as he doesn't become offensive, then he's fine. And we've just been reading about that right now, actually, in Shuddhabhati Chintamani. The danger of coming in contact with Krishna consciousness and then prematurely asserting yourself as an authority can very quickly degrade. And it may be that you've decided that you're going to project who you think you are when you're chanting, your swarup of who you think you are, which is not appropriate until you're at least at the stage of ruchi. So it's quite nice because I'd read this book by a devotee, and he'd speculated in it that it's okay to project yourself into Krishna's pastimes as, say, for instance, a gopi, and you can think of the dress and your ornaments and what your service is and your name and the color of your eyes. He says you can really get into it. He says, and this will help you when you chant your japa, because you won't have to worry about your false ego anymore, because you've left your false ego behind. You're no longer this person from this place. You're neither male nor female. You've assumed this new identity. So, and he called that dharana, which means to assume the form. And then it turns out, Shuddhabhati Chintamani, Sri Ramanuja is warning that if you do that prematurely, then it will degrade you. So that's the danger. It's very advantageous to be in the society of devotees, but it's also a minefield. If you step out, what is your qualification to do, then you can find yourself in a very difficult situation. So how we interdepend. There's a book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and it talks about being dependent, and then, which is a good habit to develop. Then a better habit is to develop independence, where you can stand on your own 2 feet and lead people. But then the highest, most difficult skill to achieve is interdependence, where you want to consider the welfare of the entire body of the community and think, okay, is this going to encourage the person? Is this going to discourage the person? If a person, say, for instance, is really enthusiastic to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books, how can we give them encouragement to help them improve in doing that service? So that's the challenge, being interdependent. Any comments or questions?
Yeah. Just as we're talking about this dependence and independence thing, I was reading something yesterday in the Bhagavatam. Just read it out here. It's from Purport in Canto 1, Chapter 6, 37. And Prabhupada is saying, without freedom, there is no execution of devotional service. This freedom surrendered to the Lord does not mean that the devotee becomes dependent in every respect. I just found that really interesting, because I guess, people can be a bit worried about becoming so surrendered that they're just fully dependent and, they have no freedom. But Prabhupada's saying it's not like that, it seems he's saying we start some independence, and after that he said to surrender unto the Lord through the transparent medium of the spiritual master is to attain complete freedom of life, which I thought was really nice as well. I think there's a really, really well-rounded aspects of what this dependence and independence means, Independence actually seems to mean that it's what we are surrendered and we are dependent, but that means that we're also independent because we're free from the material hankerings and, conditionings and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that some classes of people are always dependent, and that's to protect them. And then if they demand that they want to be independent, it may seem like they're being held back or exploited, when actually they're just being protected. So our idea of what independence is is putting ourselves in a dangerous situation, putting ourselves in harm's way. And the interesting thing is that when you become dependent upon Krishna, then you become independent of the influence of the material energy. That's how Lord Shiva acts as Lord Vishnu, because he fully depends on the spiritual energy. But when we're in contact with the material energy, and to some degree or another, we depend upon the material energy, then we lose that connection with Krishna, or it's compromised to some degree. So then it's not got the same potency, the same protective power. If you're fully aligned with what Krishna wants and the spiritual master wants, then everything is dictated from within by the Paramatma. And then you say the right thing at the right time to the right person. And that's what we get a glimpse of on book distribution. We get a chance to try that. Whereas it's not really, I mean, it's really hard if you're peeling carrots to feel like you've met that carrot at the right time and you've peeled them in the right bucket, you know, because it doesn't really make a lot of difference, does it really? But on Sankirtan, it's much more precise. And when you pull it off and you get it right, it's like, wow, that's amazing, you know. Even you're amazed that you just say the thing. Like sometimes you can see the person struggling and they're trying to find the way out. But at the same time, they would also like to be engaged, but they need to be convinced. And you're able to convince them. Then that becomes very enthusing. And then immediately the mind goes into very positive mode, that let me do that again, let me do that again, let me do that again. And then it becomes more rapid how many people we're able to connect with. Because the next people we come in contact with, when we've had a very fulfilling exchange with somebody on Sankirtan, the next person you contact is aware of that, although he doesn't know how he's aware of it, and you don't know how he's aware of it, but he's aware of it. It's like he can see that you're glowing, and he's thinking, wow, there's something special going on here. I want to take part, you know. Yeah, so we can become, by becoming dependent, then we can become independent. And actually the role of the guru, Sri Ramaj was saying, a guru is very independent because he's so dependent upon. He didn't say that, but you can see in this context that he's able to be independent. Like Srila Prabhupada, you know, he did so many things independently. And he said that his Guru Maharaj was always with him, telling him, get this building, do this. So everything was prompted and everything was very apt and very deft. You know what deft is? Deft. Deft. Do you know what deft is? Deft. What's deft mean?
Deft could be very precise.
Yeah, very precise. Very on the ball. He just says the perfect thing. Shishikot Nitai Vaya Po Shashi Ki Jai. Shri Sinath Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Giri Harilal Ki Jai. Shri Nrsingadev Bhagavan Ki Jai. And you can imagine how wonderful it is to be behaving in a very deft and very apt way. And everything, you just keep hitting the nail on the head every time. It's like, wow, okay, this is great. So that's when you're being used by Krishna. And he's able to give you the intelligence and the inspiration and the energy to be able to perform devotional service. Devotional service requires energy to execute it. And energy and enthusiasm are the same thing, really. So do we gain energy by the activity we're performing, or do we lose energy? If we're losing energy, then it means it's not enthusiastic enough. And if we become more energetic, then it means that Krishna is pleased with our enthusiasm and he's reciprocating. Joyfully, susukam kartam avyayam, it's joyfully performed. So if it's not joyful, then it's not devotional service. Joyful means enthusiastic, actually. A joyful person is enthusiastic. So if you're doing something and it's not joyful, then it's not devotional service. If you're dragging your feet and they're listening to your mind moaning, why do I have to do this? Why me? I don't know why I have to do. I don't have to do this. That is not devotional service. So Lord Vishnu is always unattached to material activities. So that's the amazing thing, that when you hear the Leela, the pastime of Krishna, you're becoming aware of activities being performed by a personality who's not affected in the slightest by the material energy. And that's why there's 9 cantos to prime us, so that when we become aware of Krishna's activities, that we appreciate the significance of what's going on and don't just think, oh, he's behaving like that because he's being affected by the material energy. He's just an ordinary person. So it's like constantly having to pull the mind back from having a mundane interpretation or conception of what's taking place, and kind of reframing it. Hold on a second, no, this is God who's doing this right now. So therefore, it's not a mundane activity, although it looks like a material activity in the material world. Any other questions or comments? Raiders.
Hare Krishna, bro.
Welcome back, son.
Thank you. You mentioned at the beginning that same as in Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna used Arjuna as an instrument because he killed all the soldiers, and then the same way in Sankirtan, Krishna is the one who actually connects the people and gives the book. Is it also true that all the other things that we do also is Krishna? Like, it's not related to Krishna consciousness?
They are not related.
Yeah, so sort of like maybe like some bad habits, or like maybe some offenses or sinful activities. Is that also Krishna doing?
Well, that's good. That's good philosophy. So you can't blame me, do you?
It wasn't me, it was Krishna.
You can't blame me. Krishna gave me that cigar. But that's what Srila Prabhupada's making a point. When Lord Shiva is untouched by the external energy, he is Lord Vishnu. But when he is in touch, then he appears in the scripture as Lord Shiva. So your activities are, there's karma, vikarma, and akarma. So one who sees action in inaction. So if you just stand there and say, oh, it's not my fight, I don't want to have anything to do with this, I just want to be a Brahmin, and all these people get killed, then you become implicated. Whereas if you go and fight, because that's the duty that you need to do as a Kshatriya, then although you're killing so many people, you get no reaction. So the attitude with which you do something will determine whether or not it's being affected by sinful reaction, or whether it's being free of sinful reaction. By the intention behind what you're doing. Not just what you're doing, but also the intention behind what you're doing.
Just on this point of intention, because this came up a few times, and I asked Pran Prabhu about it as well, but I thought I'd just bring it up now, because we were discussing how there's this saying, all the path to hell is paved with good intentions or something.
Yeah.
There's like a saying like that, but then there's also there's that small verse that says Bhava Grahi Janardana, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that's a bit of a contradiction, right? Because Bhava Grahi Janardana means like the mood is what Krishna sees, right?
Yeah.
And so that means like the intention. So
yeah, like when Krishna was offered banana skins.
yeah.
So you could say, from a technical point of view, giving somebody a banana skin is a really bad, and then the person feeling duty bound to accept the banana skin because he's your guest and that's what you've offered him, you're the host. So he's eating these banana skins. So that would seem like a really bad, but then there was a feast which was cooked, which was a lot better than the banana in the banana skin. But Krishna wasn't interested because the intention behind it was bad, you know. So the intention, especially in devotional service, the sentiment with which you are doing something, the intention. But then there was one time Srila Prabhupada was taking Chan and Rita, and he went, he said something like this, "This is salt. Who has put salt?" And this Mataji came up and she started giggling and she says, "Oh, it must be Krishna's mercy." Prabhupada said, "It is not Krishna's mercy, it is your foolishness." So that's somebody trying to palm off, "Oh, well, I was doing it with devotion." Like one time the milk was burnt. They went in the altar and the milk was everywhere, you know. It, like the cup had exploded. And Srila Prabhupada said, "Was the milk burnt?" And the devotee says, "It was slightly, but it was cooked with devotion." And Srila Prabhupada said, "Well, it wouldn't be burnt if it was cooked with devotion." So Krishna rejected it. So you may have some sentimental idea that as long as I'm trying to do this to please Krishna, then whatever I do is okay. But it's not. There's with the Pujari service, you know, you have to be there on time, you have to be clean, and you have to know everything systematically. And if you just hop on the altar and say, "Oh, well, I just got second initiation, so I'll be fine because I'm just thinking of how much I love Krishna," and you start off from the chamra, and then you offer a flower, and then you think, "I think I'll do the ghee wick next." And what about the incense? Yeah, I'll finish off with a bit of incense. It'll create a nice little smoky atmosphere. It's like, you know, you've got to be technically, that's why it's Vaidhi. In the beginning, Vaidhi is, we're brushing aside all our sentiments and we're just going specifically. This is the item, this is the time, this is the procedure. Follow it completely. And from Vaidhi, then spontaneity can rise, you know. But it doesn't happen overnight. It takes quite a while of following the Vaidhi, which means you do things because of a sense of duty, because you feel like you've made this vow. Like I was talking to a devotee the other day, and he's not following his vows. He's not even chanting. And he says, I just feel that right now I need to do that because I want to enjoy myself before I reach 50. And then I'll go back to my vows and back to my chanting, you know. And so he's trying to justify it like that. But you've made a promise. Srila Prabhupada said that once you've made a promise, if you're a gentleman, you have to fulfill the promise, you know. And some devotees came to Srila Prabhupada and they said, Prabhupada, we didn't realize, we were very young and we didn't realize how difficult it was going to be to follow the principles, and we can't follow them now. So we just wanted to let you know that we've kind of given up on following them. And Prabhupada was unrelenting. He said, but you promised. Yeah, but Prabhupada, we didn't realize what we were promising. Yeah, but still, a gentleman keeps his promise. So that's why we make vows and commitments, because later on the mind may not be so inclined, and then we have to push past what the mind is saying. So we make commitment, we take vows, and we push through Vaidhi to achieve the stage of being spontaneous, where we want to do it. We don't, not because we have to, but because we want to, you know. And it's a nice exercise in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He says, write down all the things you have to do. And then next to that, write down that you want to do them. I want to be here for Mangalati. I want to chant Hare Krishna. I want to be a pure devotee. I want to do book distribution. And then it shifts the whole thing. That this is your intention. This is what you want, even though it may not be so pleasing to your senses. Because if you don't do those things, then you realize that you did want to do them, you know? And you're like, oh, I knew I should have got up. Oh, I knew I should have followed my vows. Oh, I knew I should have chanted. So just connect with that and realize that is what I want. I get to, I want to, eventually it'll be I love to. So we have to go from I get to I want to. And then the intention will mature into I love to, where it will be unbearable not to. I will never be happy. I've never seen a devotee that's given up devotional service that was happy. He's haunted. In that book by Kadamba Maharaj, he says, Your vows, you may give up your vows. He says, but your vows will never give you up. They'll follow you everywhere and remind you should have done this. You said you would do this, into your next lifetime. Better to just do it all in one lifetime, because if you do make some kind of a mess and you become offensive, then in your next lifetime, you may be attracted to devotional service, but you just never quite get off the ground. You never quite get into it because you have an apparat hanging over you from a past life. And that's compromising your ability to engage in devotional service enthusiastically. As I heard Sri Ramaj was explaining, that some devotees, they can be around for years, but they never quite take initiation and they never quite get into it, they just hang around. And he says that can be because of past offenses in the past life. So we don't want to do that. We just want to finish up this lifetime, keep good relationships with all the devotees. Like Rupa Goswami says, Krishna tiyajagiritam mana shadareta. At least we can offer respect to everybody in the mind. And then dikshasti chat, those that have received diksha and engaged in worshipping the deity, we can offer pranams. And those who are completely devoid of the propensity and are engaged in undeviated devotional service, those ones we'd like to especially inquire from and reveal our heart and mind to, because they're free from the propensity to criticize, which means that they won't judge you. They'll just encourage you, And it'll be such a powerful resource if you can have one person, at least one person in your life where you're totally transparent. Then it means every time you have a problem, you go to that devotee and say, I have this problem, and that problem immediately is halved. A problem shared is a problem halved. So that means you remove 50% of the difficulty by just having a transparent relationship with somebody that you can trust in Krishna consciousness. And it's not easy. Maya doesn't make it easy, because once it happens, then devotional service becomes easy. And that's the last thing Maya wants to do, is to make it easy for you. So that's how we make it easy for ourselves, by establishing that relationship with Sunguya Makiti Prichiti. It's one of the 6 living exchanges, is to reveal the confidential secrets that are there in the heart. It doesn't always have to be bad things, it can be really good things as well, but you don't tell everybody about that. Only the devotee that you can really trust. Otherwise, you say, oh yeah, I was chanting this morning, and the devotee is a bit envious. You say, no, who does he think he is, And then you become discouraged, rather than becoming encouraged, Any other questions or comments? Yeah, it's a good question. The road to hell is paved with intention. It's a good question.
Yeah, I just remember when we went to Aberdeen for Sankirtan and doing marathon. It was at the beginning of the day, so I was giving some books. I gave like 1 or 2 for free because I thought we'll just get it going, And it was later on, I just kind of turned around, and there was like a post or like a thing and there was a book, but there was the book there. It was ripped, and it was just left there, So it's like I interpreted it as Krishna just didn't accept it, because I couldn't remember anyone having a bit like a nasty character or anything like that, all the people met, they seemed to be kind of nice, but somehow other the book was just there, just right next to me, and okay, we'll take that and take that back. And,
yeah.
So
that kind of highlights that just doing something with a good intention is not enough, then, eh? And that's why Srila Prabhupada said, don't just give the books away. Then that qualifies the person if they really want to read the book. Then you look at what they're spending on cigarettes and pints of beer, and they can't afford a couple of pounds for a book. You see kids at Christmas, over 16, of course, and they get their wallet out, and they've got like £400 or £500 there. And the parents have just given them that so they can go and get something for themselves, you know. And I walked into a shop called Hugo Boss on Buchanan Street just to check it out. You know, I was looking at one or two things, and I couldn't believe the label. You know, it's like £500 for a t-shirt, £800 for a jacket, and people love it when you stop them on Sankirtan. They've got a Canada Goose jacket, and you say, "Oh my God, that's at least 500." Well, actually, it was 700, and you can't help the monks. Oh, yeah. But the reason they're wearing a £700 coat is because they want people to see. You know, and if you rip the label off, it's just the same as, well, maybe not as the same as one in Primark, but maybe TK Maxx. So yeah, people have got so much money, so we shouldn't be squeamish about asking them to give it for Krishna. You know, you have to hit them clean, and just without any flinching or any cringing. You know, can you give the same amount as you paid for your coat, or whatever? You know. Yeah, there's this nice book, actually, it's called The Nectar of Book Distribution. And it's quoting different devotees, different Prabhupada disciples and Sankirtan devotees. And every comment that Gauri Devi Dasi makes are just so amazing, you know. And she's saying one thing that really struck me. I was doing a marathon one time, I was struggling a bit, and I read this thing that she said, it was so helpful. Then you realize how powerful these books can be, you know, on Sankirtan, if it encourages devotees to really become focused. But she was saying when she first did Sankirtan, it was such a struggle because the way her ego was, she was kind of very serious and grave and sinister, she said, which is the very last way that you have to be for Sankirtan. She says, on Sankirtan, you have to be light and fluttery like a butterfly, and just float over to people and go in like a needle, and in a totally non-threatening way. And she said, but for her, it was the most painful thing. It was like she was going after somebody with a needle, and she felt she was hurting them, and they thought she was hurting them. And she said, and the whole experience was absolutely horrible. But she said, but I could see that other devotees weren't having any of that difficulty at all, and they were experiencing so much pleasure, and it was completely natural for them, and so easy for them. And she was thinking, well, if it can be like that for them, then surely it can be like that for me as well. So she pushed on. And then she said one day was a turning point in her Sankirtan career where she suddenly just broke through. And she said, and after that, her Sankirtan was never difficult anymore. She had no problem approaching people and no problem just talking about nothing and just chatting with them and being completely non-threatening and genuinely wanting to be the person's well-wisher. She said at that point, that's when her Sankirtan career changed. And she says, Krishna wants you to engage people fully, completely fully. He wants you to do that. But he also doesn't want you to be affected in a bad way by the result. So that's what impedes our success on Sankirtan. So when we're properly aligned with the right intention, then people can surrender so much. Like with Srila Prabhupada, they didn't just take a set of Bhagavatams on the street. They just came back with you, shaved the head, and became a devotee, which is phenomenal, you know, to be able to engage somebody, a stranger, and engage them that much from just listening to a few words from you, becoming convinced that I want to give my life to this, you know. So that's when you're fully aligned and your intention is completely 100% pure, you know. That's what will happen. And Vacha Vegam and Sakrodya Vegam, Rupa Goswami wants us to become Prativim Shishishat. He wants us to preach and make disciples all over the world. Jai. Iskon Guru Vrinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanandi Hari Bol. All of you.